Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in. You're watching In the Studio. I'm your host, Lin Weaver. The program is brought to you by Davis Media Access and is broadcast on Davis Community Television, that's Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T UVerse Menu 99. We're also online at dctv.davismedia.org. Well, as you remember, a little while ago, we here in the studio, we had two fantastic guests and a very interesting topic, namely the TPP or Trans Pacific Partnership. And we specifically we talked about the lack of transparency and the secrecy by the Obama administration about the negotiations and the opposition, both by Congress and by activists, to find out more about what these negotiations were all about. Well, tonight we are going to follow up on some of the recent developments and some of the events. And here with me, returning to In the Studio, are Jim Leonard, an activist, a writer, and a longtime resident of Davis. Welcome. And Nancy Price, a resident of Davis since 1973, with a long list of impressive achievements and successes in our community. Since 2002, Nancy is the co-chair of the national organization Alliance for Democracy and on the leadership team of several other state and national organizations. Nancy is currently working with a broad coalition of groups nationwide to stop Fast Track and the TPP, as well as to establish municipal and county TPP-free zone. Now, welcome back to our show.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your time. We have seen in the media, and I'm going to ask Nancy this, we have seen in the media in the last few days a manifesto hanging from the window of the Ecuadorian embassy in London. And as you know, the Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, now is taking refuge for the last year or so on in the embassy because to fight extradition to Sweden. And literally in the last couple of days, there was hanging from the window of the embassy a picture and the banner, and it says, "Stop TPP, transparency, release the text."
Right.
And also in this picture, and I'm going to come to the question, but also in the last few days, there was a picture released by WikiLeaks, which says, let's see if there we go. We have a visual which says, "First full chapter of secret TPP released." Well, that in itself is a very interesting development. And so what I'm going to ask you, Nancy, finally, is what are the latest events, in addition to this, regarding the TPP negotiation? What is happening?
Yes. Well, I have to say that this leak of the intellectual property chapter is the third leak. The first leak in 2010 was of the investment chapter, and then this past 2012 was a leak of the regulatory coherence chapter. So we've got some allies somewhere that are helping to bring this text to light, because for the past 3 or more years it's been negotiated in total secrecy. And members of the public and civil society have not been at the table. Representatives of about 600 corporations have been at the table negotiating. And it's been said that if this text saw the light of day, it would never have a chance to pass Congress. So now people are really clamoring for the rest of the 29 chapters to be released. And I have to say that in light of the fact that right now in Warsaw, Poland, the climate talks, the 19th round, I guess it is, I think it's the 19th round anyway, of climate talks are going forward, that we must have the environment chapter of the TPP released, because that is going to reveal the extent to which the environment is going to be protected or not by this agreement.
It's interesting. Now, since we last spoke, there was more action in Congress and also more action by activists around the country. Do you have any details that you know of about this?
Yes, yes. Well, very quickly.
Yes.
So that last week, as a result of a great deal of organizing at the grassroots to have calls go to Congress and letters go to Congress, 151 Democrats in the House of Representatives signed on to a letter saying that they did not approve of fast track and they wanted the TPP text to be released so it could be debated fairly and openly and with the details known. And a letter also by Republicans, Michelle Bachmann and Walter Jones, Republican representatives, got 23 signatures. And in addition, another letter was released by 8 members of the House Ways and Means Committee that oversees trade, saying that they wanted fast track to be, they did not approve of fast track authority for the president, and they wanted the TPP to be debated openly and be brought into the light.
And just to clarify about fast track, we spoke last time that is a legislation or law that was actually passed during the Nixon administration, if correct me if I'm wrong, and then it lapsed. And now the fear has been in the last few months that the Obama administration will reintroduce this legislation.
Right.
And just to clarify again, the fast track is basically it overrides the Congress vote, and the president can actually sign off on an agreement such as the TPP or some other agreement.
Yes.
Now, do you have an update on this fast track?
Yes.
Now?
Well, just for clarification, Nixon introduced this fast track concept that Congress would vote to give their constitutional authority over trade with foreign nations, that is, that their authority to negotiate and sign a treaty with foreign nations on trade, to the president. And so that has been renewed and lapsed and renewed and lapsed over the decades. And it lapsed finally in 2002, George Bush got it back, and 2007 it lapsed. So now Obama wants it back. And the way he does that is he introduces a letter to Congress saying, I would like fast track authority, which allows him to negotiate the trade agreement, which he's been doing for 3 years, but now it allows him to sign it, and then introduce the trade legislation as a fully negotiated, signed document to Congress on this fast track
path.
Yes, that's a good word. Which means that Congress, it may or may not go to the committees that need to oversee it. It cannot be amended. It's discussed within a limited period of time, and it's voted on up or down. It's a majority vote, up or down. And because it cannot be amended, this is a document that the president and his negotiating partners and 600 corporate trade representatives have negotiated. Our representatives have had no say, and they won't have any say if this is done under fast track.
Yes. Just to clarify once again, President Obama has not requested a fast track.
No,
not yet.
No.
This is just a fear of what may come.
Well, he has said that he wants fast track authority.
Yes.
So it's anticipated that he will present a letter to Congress asking them to vote on fast track and give him that authority. So that's why all this mobilization has been going on.
I see. Well, let me turn to Jim, since he's been very good sitting there listening to all our talking. And Jim, I wanted you to maybe reintroduce TPP from a historical point of view, just so for the new viewers can understand what it is, and then the whole concept of these negotiations, which are kept voluntary, kept secret, and they have been in the past. Could you comment on that, please?
Sure. We have all these multinationals in the world that are connected to each other, and they have problems. They want to get what they want to get, which is more wealth, and they want to eliminate barriers to that. And one of the barriers is the laws of countries. So a country may have a law regarding labor. Well, the corporation would like to have that law be secondary to their ability to get their profit. Mm-hmm. And if there was environment, it's the same thing. If it's the internet, it's the same thing. This comes out of there's a long, long history, which probably goes back before, even before corporations, of wealthy, powerful people wanting to get what they want to get, and everything else doesn't matter. And so as far as secrecy goes, up until, and Nancy can correct me here if I need correcting, up until the Trans Pacific Partnership, there has been relative exposure to public knowledge wasn't blocked, but public knowledge is blocked with TPP. Right. For example, with NAFTA, there was a stink and a holler about it before it went through because people knew. Mm-hmm. So now, I think that with if the laws of the countries are done away with, essentially, and corporations can just do what they want, sort of a Wild West scenario, then there's plenty of room for forcing nations to do what they otherwise would not do. For example, if there was an African nation that wanted to be able to trade with the United States, it could well be, if you don't sign on to this agreement, then you can't trade with us. Mm-hmm. Well, if most of their product goes to the U.S., then that would be bankruptcy for them. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very heavy. Well, one of the things which could be asked of a country by corporations, say, you cannot process your own products, which would put them at a very bad position. Mm-hmm. But if you process your own product, then you are in violation of fast track, and we can fine you under the terms of the agreement. Mm-hmm. You're interfering with a corporation's ability to make maximum profit within your country. Now, I usually have a problem talking too much, so I just want to end at this point in time with a quote from Julian Assange, which I think is just perfect.
Go ahead.
Okay. If you read, write, publish, think, listen, dance, sing or invent, if you farm or consume food, if you're ill now or might one day be ill, the TPP has you in its crosshairs.
That's very strong and very interesting. So if I can extrapolate from what you say, that your main objection and alarm as a citizen of the United States or a citizen of any country is the fact that this agreement would supersede the laws of a country, in other words, and will make us powerless. So in other words, our democracy and the laws that were voted in certain areas, including the copyright law or the climate control laws and protection laws, they would allegedly be overrun by the treaty, the terms of the treaty, which is very dangerous, of course, and that is why there is this mobilization, and you seem to say that it's also a trend in United States history for these
and world history.
And world history, yes. So this is interesting. I wanted, before going, because this is a very complex topic, before going any further, I'm going to ask Nancy to explain a little bit what the TPP free zones are.
Yes.
And because I'm still confused about that.
Yes. Well, there's a bit of history to creating these free zones, because in 1998 there was the attempt to have an investment treaty passed that would cover all the nations of the world, all across the globe. And that was called the Multilateral Investment Treaty, and a Multilateral Agreement on Investments. And people began mobilizing against this because it would have recognized that corporations have more rights than communities and people. So people began to organize against it, and one of the strategies was to declare a municipality or a county to be a MAI free zone, a Multilateral Agreement on Investment free zone. And we did that in this country and in Canada. I don't think other countries were doing that, but part of that strategy began to mobilize the resistance globally, and the MAI was defeated. And it led into the mobilization against the WTO in Seattle in 1999. So now my organization, the Alliance for Democracy, has decided that we would revive that strategy and ask communities to establish TPP free zones and pass resolutions now. And so Dane County, Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin have done that. They've passed a resolution that says they do not approve of fast track, that they do not approve of the TPP, and they will come back, if the TP is established as law, they'll come back and establish the county or Madison, Wisconsin as TPP free zones. And this campaign is called We Will Not Obey, because it's very important that we as sovereign people begin to resist the corporate takeover of our community, our lives, our environment, and for profit, and leave people and nature aside. So this is a strategy, and the Peace and Justice Commission of Berkeley, California just passed a resolution on to their city council that will probably vote on it in January. We have a few other communities that are inquiring about this strategy. Tomorrow, one of my collaborators in the Alliance for Democracy will be on the Citizens Trade Campaign national call explaining this. So we hope it will pick up.
It sounds as though you, together with Congress, are beginning to form a movement which is becoming very powerful, because we often underestimate the power of the grassroots and the numbers, the sheer numbers, and sometimes we sway the decisions, and that's what a democracy is all about.
Well, you know, across the TPP countries, which are our 12 countries of the Pacific Rim, there have been tens of thousands out demonstrating. But you don't read about that in our media.
It is true,
And you don't read about the demonstrations that have actually occurred in the U.S. when the TPP negotiators have met in the U.S. So right now, although people will be viewing this later, but right now the chief negotiators and so-called experts are meeting in St. Salt Lake City.
Yes.
And there's a big mobilization right now for the entire week, this week.
Yes. To disrupt? Or
to educate, their
Yes.
teach-ins,
Yes.
their evening candlelight vigils. There's light banners where at night messages in light are broadcast onto buildings that say stop the TPP. I just sent one of the organizers a message saying, please have TPP-free zones on whatever building you're projecting the light message onto. But in any event, there's a lot of mobilization going on.
Do you get a sense that President Obama is listening to this?
No. December 3rd has been called for by, I think it's the Malaysians, to be a global day of action. Because in early December, the WTO, the World Trade Organization representatives meet in the Pacific Rim, and following that meeting, the TPP negotiators meet. And so there's now a call for a real global mobilization, because every country, even though the TPP only covers 12 countries of the Pacific Rim,
yes,
the WTO, of course, covers 159 countries.
A huge amount of countries.
Huge number of countries.
We can only speculate, perhaps, but what do you think are the real reasons for wanting these trade agreements? And I'm going to ask Nancy, because I think, and then please follow up. We can only speculate because we don't really know everything, but nobody ever came out. Well, there were a lot of statements, but what do you think are the real reasons for wanting these trade agreements?
Well, I think that undisputably it is the wealthy 1%, the power brokers of the world, and in all the countries, globally, who really want to consolidate their power through these trade agreements, which, because of the investment chapter of the trade agreements, recognizes that corporations have a right to challenge the domestic laws of any country, should those laws be interpreted to harm their ability to profit.
Yes.
And these challenges go to a secret trade court of 3 lawyers where the people have no ability to attend the hearings, and they have no way to challenge the outcome of the hearing. So if the corporation is awarded the amount requested, that their profits are going to be harmed over X period of years, hundreds of millions of dollars, that fine is paid out of our tax dollars. There is already a fund established in Congress to pay out these fines that we have never voted on. I've never voted that my dollars can be used to pay out a fine to a multinational corporation because my environmental laws have prevented them from profiting. I've never voted on that.
It's very interesting. Jim, would you like to comment on this particular point? Why do you think, why is the real reason for wanting these trade agreements?
Well, I think that look at what an average people want to be able to have some kind of control over their lives, and corporations want to have some kind of control over their wealth. And since wealth is linked to production and labor, corporations therefore want control over our lives and control over the stuff of our lives. And this covers things we eat. It's the medical things we need medically. It covers communication. It even, to some extent, you could even argue that it covers our perceptions because they want to control education, as an example. And so essentially, we want to be treated like we're people, and corporations want to treat us as a means to an end for they're getting more money and getting more power.
But let's close the gap here, because we always say the corporation.
Yes.
But I think what's really important here is that the investor rights chapter of these free trade agreements allows the corporation to challenge our laws, and because of they're hindering them making profits. But who profits from that? It is the investor class, and it is the investor class that then controls money in politics. It controls the politics, the kinds of laws we have, the people who run for office, who wins in office because they can raise the most campaign contributions.
Of course.
And right now we're in the process of understanding that corporations not only have First Amendment rights, where they have money has been declared speech, but they have other constitutional rights, and they're not living, breathing persons. And the Supreme Court, actually, our Supreme Court, has facilitated that
by voting that no disclosures would be necessary
exactly.
for contributions.
And these international trade courts are like our Supreme Court in that they're the final arbiter of international trade law and investor rights law.
Yes.
And we have no recourse, just the way we have no recourse to our Supreme Court that fixes settled law. These trade courts are establishing settled law globally. And in fact, the trade agreements are like a constitution to global corporate power.
I'm afraid we're just about out of time. And what I wanted to, very quickly.
Supreme Court would be secondary to this multinational court.
Very, very good point to make. So what, very quickly, I know we must go, but how can we help the community?
Yes, well, the community can go to various websites, the alliancefordemocracy.org, TPP Free Zones, Flush the TPP.
Yes.
Those are the two major websites at the moment that are really dealing with this issue. If the community is interested, we could work together to establish Davis as a TPP-free zone. They can call.
We must leave it there. Thank you so much, Nancy Price, Jim Leonard. Thank you for all that you do for our community, and thank you for being here tonight. You've been watching In the Studio. I'm Lin Weaver. If you'd like to watch this program again, you can go to dctv.davismedia.org, and while you're there, you can check out some of our other interesting programs. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for our technical team, the wonderful technical team. I'm Lin Weaver. You've been watching In the Studio. See you next time.